All right. Hey, everyone. I'm joined here with RJ Harrold today, just days before his big upcoming match with Daniel Groselak at the Montana Armbender. Before we get into that, though, for anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us about where you're from, how long you've been arm wrestling, and who you train with?
Yeah, so I've been arm wrestling almost 2 years now, and I mostly train with Robbie Topi, Alan Fisher, Lewis Horvath, and a whole lot of other guys out here in Idaho, around the Boise area. But I'm from like 40, 50 miles out of Boise. That's where I've lived here my whole life. So
Nice. Yeah. All big names that you work with. Do you think that's kind of part of the reason why you're progressing so quickly?
I think so, yeah. Just being around strong people who know the sport.
For sure. Because now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm told that you're the current state champion right now.
Yes.
Yeah. 176. Awesome. Yeah. Who?
I'm gonna have a match with Alex March 15th to settle that.
Groot? Nice. That'll be a really good match. That'll be a fun one to see. What date is that one?
March 15th at Old State Saloon in Eagle.
Okay. Yeah, so you're pretty much just going to be hopping right back into it right after this match with Dan.
Right back in prep.
And how old are you?
20.
20. I feel like right now we have like a big crop of like up and coming young guys coming into the sport, and everyone's like starting off pretty at a much higher level than what you would typically see. Did you start watching or being interested in arm wrestling before you actually started going to like a club and training, or did someone just invite you?
It was actually maybe at least probably 2 years before I started training, which I found a club. Robbie was only like 10 minutes away from me, and I never knew until I went on ArmBet and talked to TJ Lewis. But I was doing a project where I went to a gym and I was talking with this guy about different sports, and he actually showed me arm wrestling videos of it. And then it was like a week or two later, I was thinking about it and I got interested in it.
Mm. Have you always been into sports, or was like arm wrestling like the first kind of like major endeavor?
It's probably the first endeavor that I'm this serious with, but I played basketball in high school, did CrossFit, and I mean I've been around sports pretty much my whole life too. So
So are you a naturally pretty athletic person then?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. When you train, are you more of a person who focuses on table time, or do you do a lot of gym lifts too, or do you try to kind of keep it even between both?
It's honestly almost all table time.
Almost all
Like
table time?
I do some lifting, and most of it's actually light, like with bands, just staying, like keeping everything connected. But as far as what I think gets me stronger, it's being on a table with really strong people.
And do you train more than once a week on the table?
I try to train as much as I can,
Okay.
at least once or twice a week. Yeah.
One of the hardest parts about arm wrestling and getting a lot of table time in is being able to recover from table time. Do you feel like you bounce back pretty quick and you can get back on table and still be strong, or does it like kind of put you down for a couple days?
For the most part, I feel like maybe 3 days and I can be back from heavy table time, but it depends how hard, and yeah, it all just depends. But I haven't really had a ton of chronic injury.
That's good. And when you guys approach table time, I'm always curious to hear how different clubs do it. Do you guys kind of go in and just like free pool, almost like simulated matches? Do you guys train like specific movements, like, oh, today we're going to work on like starts or, top roll or inside, or do you just kind of like slow pool?
So when we were training at Robbie's more, it is mostly kind of, free for all. We're going to practice, we're talking, we're learning, we're pulling all. And that's still what it is for the most part. And we're at a gym where we train with Alan, but he does do more focuses also onto like specific things.
Okay. And now with being the state champion right now, is it both hands or just right arm?
Technically, it would be both because that's
Okay.
from Idaho State. Yeah.
But do you feel like you're pretty far ahead of your peers in the state, or is it pretty cutthroat? Are you guys all pretty close?
Right now, I feel like it's me and Alex, and then there's a little drop off, but I mean, people just have to try and match the level.
Yeah. What do you think helps you the most so far with like, what for instance, do you think it's your consistency that helped you the most, or do you think you just have like a natural like knack for arm wrestling, the way you train? Where do you think most of your progress has come from so far?
Both, really. Like I've been going pretty nonstop since I got with the club, and then I feel like I'm genetically relatively predispositioned to being good, like for strength sports, and it's like in a weight class. I'm not like huge, but
I've talked to a lot of different guys on these conversations that I've been having. When you say like you feel predisposed to it, what aspects do you think are important in arm wrestling? Like what makes someone naturally good at arm wrestling? Do you think it's all like people focus like on hand size or forearm length, or do you think it's something like, you know, like your neural drive, like how explosive you are?
honestly, all of that in my like overall bone structure, and then all connective tissue. You have to have connection to not get opened.
Earlier, you said you did CrossFit. I think CrossFit actually lends really well as a basis for arm wrestling because typically the rep thresholds and the volume is a lot higher than like someone who just goes into the gym and bodybuilds and stuff like that. And I think those higher reps and like you said earlier, like the blood flow or working with the bands, that type of stuff really builds your connective tissues, those ligaments and tendons. And I think it gives you a lot better basis in arm wrestling than like traditional weightlifting. Do you agree with that?
I do. I would say the more athletic stuff you do year after year after year is generally always going to be good for like health and being an overall athlete in general.
And would you classify yourself as an offensive or defensive arm wrestler?
Mostly offensive, but I feel like at both. And I mean, I feel like it's harder. It takes more years to get defensive style, I feel like.
And do you prefer to like fight defensively in the same way that you do offensively? Because like I know a lot of people, like they might be offensive top rollers, but they prefer to like catch people in a hook and then like fight defensively from a hook. Is that how you work too, or are you a little different?
I'm maybe a little different because I would say there's one lane. I'm stronger. I'm stronger in one lane or one area for sure, both ways. But my inside game is stronger defensively than my outside game. But my outside game is like the difference between is less for my inside game than my outside game, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah. That makes me curious about what your thoughts are on your upcoming match with Dan. Do you know a lot about him? Have you watched a lot of his matches? Or are you kind of going into this just, you know, thinking that you're just gonna do your best move and see what happens?
I think for the most part, like I plan to just dominate every piece that I can, but like match happens, you see where you're stronger, where you're not, and what's key to winning. But from what I've seen, overall looks like good base, fundamental, outside, side pressure, heavy guy. I feel like if I have hand control, it's over.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
plan.
The thing about Dan that's always tough when people match up against him is that, you know, he's been doing this for a while and he really actively thinks all the time about how he can, you know, get better and do better as an arm wrestler. So he's really well rounded and he's got a lot of different lanes where like you can pin him easy round one and then he kind of finds a way to like get back in there and then he all of a sudden feels 10 times stronger because he felt like that little area. Do you feel like you have the ability to make like the adjustments necessary if like he finds a different lane to get in there round to round?
I do, but I also personally feel like if I get one round, I'm gonna win them all.
So you think like a first round pin will just like lead to a shutout?
I think so.
Okay. Do you think
Like
it's gonna be a power difference or just you're just like a technical like you said, get hand control and then once that's gone, then you just feel like you're just in complete control?
that's how I feel the match will go, and that's how I feel like honestly most matches go. It just depends on what like if I have hand and shoulder, there's no coming back from that. Like sure there could be. It just depends which pieces go where. I don't. I think I'm gonna have too many though.
Is there any lanes you're looking to avoid in this match? Like maybe not going straight into a hook or avoiding like a press or something like that, or do you just think that just the difference in hand control is going to be too much?
I think the hand control is gonna be too much, and then just round by round. See, I don't know where.
And his hand
Oh,
controls.
like
Go ahead. I was gonna say, is hand control something you felt like you've kind of it's always been like a a strength of yours, or is it something that you've developed over the last 2 years?
Coming in, it's always been a strength, at least as far as not getting my wrist and fingers open.
Okay.
It doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, that's really nice coming into the sport, because I was the opposite, where you could just blow air in my direction and my wrist would pop open. Like I had the weakest hands and wrists. So yeah, whenever someone new comes in and they already have like a completely developed hand, it feels pretty frustrating as a person who had to work really hard for years to like even have a decent okay hand. So like, is there something about your past like that you did that you think that made your hand stronger? Again, is it just more of like a genetic thing, you think, or like it's just something that you just have?
I think most part is genetic. I mean, like my dad has had like huge, big hands.
Okay. Have you ever pulled with Hunter Broughton before?
I actually haven't. No.
Okay. Yeah, because he's
They're
another
long.
guy. What's that?
He has big long hands, doesn't he?
When I see like the 176ers or lighter, because he can pull in he can make it down to the 154s if he wants to, pretty easy. As a matter of fact, I think he kind of sits closer to that weight most of the time. But whenever I compare like lightweight guys, I'm like, his hand to me is like the gold standard of lightweight guys. So if you can match up hands with him, that's impressive. So hopefully he makes it up, so you guys can after pull a little bit, because that'd be an interesting one to see for sure.
My hands aren't super long, but they're thick.
Yeah.
As far as like Alex has longer hands than me, but we're right around the same height. He's probably a little shorter, but then like he's really wide and long.
Yeah. And with that match coming up, are you preparing differently for both of these matches, or are you just in general right now like in a place where you kind of feel like you know what you need to do and you're just working on getting stronger in general?
Right now I've been overall getting stronger in general, but then for Alex I have 2 or 3 key pieces that I'm gonna get really, really, really strong.
Okay. Yeah,
'Cause
that's
I
always
know what
great
I
to
need.
hear.
If I pulled someone before, I know what I need to do.
Okay, so you feel like you're pretty intuitive, like you get a good read, like once you get in there and like feel their hand and where their pressures and stuff are. What do you think is like key to paying attention, or like what do you look for when you grip up with someone to know where you want to go in the match? Like what pressures are you looking for?
It's a feel, honestly. It's just like it's hard to pinpoint exactly what I'm feeling for, but also like once I find that area, I found it, is what I feel like.
And are you really picky in the setup? Like, are you really particular about exactly how, like where and how you want your hand and how you want it to feel before you start? Or are you more of a person that's just like, you just want to like grab hands and just go as soon as possible?
I'd say it depends, but mostly I just want, like, I want to be fighting in the directions I need to. More so than like if I'm comfortable, that's ideal, but I don't have to be comfortable. I know what I need to be doing to be effective.
And what do you think makes you the most like dangerous in your class? Like what tool in your bag do you think stands out with you the most? Is it like your back pressure, your roll, your rise? Where do you think you just overwhelm people the most?
Connective tissue and brain.
Okay. I like that answer.
Knowing where to go and having connection. That's the whole sport.
Oh yeah, for sure. It takes a long time, and it sounds like, just watching some of your matches and just hearing other people speak about you just like pick things up naturally. You have troubles with someone at practice, then you come back the next practice and you already kind of like have a game plan, or you kind of know how to get back in there. And so people speak really highly of you. And with these 2 matches coming up, let's say you win both of them. Let's say you beat Dan and Alex. What's next on your radar?
Get as strong as I can, and few years, I'm just going to try to go as high as I can in the sport.
But you don't have any like for example, like any specific names, or like going to nationals or anything like that?
Oh, not at least not on the horizon yet. Like I want to be like a world champion, but that's probably like at minimum 2 years away if I had to guess. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, I like that. If you can become a world champion in 4 years, that'd be pretty dang impressive. I just feel like there's so much talent coming into the sport right now. And being a younger guy, do you feel like, is it hard to get people your age or friends interested in it? Or do they seem like once you kind of explain things, that they kind of start liking it? Or what do you think holds people from getting into it?
I would say you just have to find the right people. And like, not everyone's going to want to arm wrestle or be an arm wrestler. But
Right.
I mean, you put that out there, people people will come to you, or you'll find people and make get stronger in the sport. Really,
Right. It's like one thing I feel like I noticed a lot is most fans of arm wrestling are arm wrestlers themselves because not everyone's going to get into arm wrestling. So I feel like you kind of have to be a particular type of person to be okay with the pain of arm wrestling and like the consistent uncomfortableness of arm wrestling. What do you think, in your opinion, or at least within your generation, do you look at that stops more people from just being fans of arm wrestling without having to arm wrestle? You know, like they might not have any interest to arm wrestle themselves, but they would be interested in like watching super matches or tournaments.
that's something I really I don't know. I have to think about that more. But and like I started out as a fan, and then when I found a club, I became an arm wrestler also.
You just think it's a matter of exposure, maybe just not enough people have kind of seen it.
It might a little. I don't think it would. I don't think it does a whole lot though. I think it's just not. I think it hasn't. I don't fully know why, but it hasn't reached like it's not a full body combat sport. It's a little more niche. I don't think it's reached like mainstream being pushed levels. At least
Right.
not
Like,
yet.
yeah, not yet. And I think the thing that I look at the most is slap fighting. It's curious to me. Like I can see why it probably became popular because it's such a simple sport. You stand there and you slap each other, right? And arm wrestling is very complicated. Are you a person that, do you prefer very pure, strict arm wrestling with very strict like IFA or WAF rules? Or are you a person that kind of wishes that certain things would be looser just so that way it'd be faster and more fun and maybe even more entertaining for people to watch?
I overall I think matches do need to be faster. We need to make our system more. I'm trying to think of the word like that. I would like more precise, more of a science to where we can go through matches like optimally.
Yeah, it
And
takes so long for sure.
I lost my track of thought.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. No, I think that's really the big, you know, point that most people harp on is that you could be spending 3, 4, even sometimes 5 minutes in the setup for a 3-second match. And I think for like onlookers and people who don't really know arm wrestling that well, that can be like frustrating to be like, okay, well, why was there all that build up for essentially not like no payoff? Would you be willing for like, let's say, taking away a little bit of the integrity of the setup? And maybe you're not always going to get a fair start, but you're going to start much faster. Do you think that's a better move? Like putting strict time limits, like let's say people have 10 seconds to get a grip. And if they don't get a grip, it just goes straight to the strap.
Yeah, it depends. I agree with that. Honestly, it's a strap sport.
Mhm.
The way we arm wrestle, it should be in a strap, and they should be really easy to get to because we're going to get to it anyway, in my opinion. But
I feel like,
also,
go ahead.
like with what I was saying, or what I lost my track of thought is I still want power and more so in the hands of the athlete to decide,
Yeah,
even while we're speeding it up, they need to be the main decider of who wins. Like
absolutely.
something I'm all for. Like, I just feel like I don't know why we would have
Yeah.
refs close our hands when we're gonna arm wrestle. They can put us where we are, but why are they closing it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I actually had this conversation with Clifton when he was on the other week because I hate that the refs have any control over the match, and I feel like they have too much control as it is. And I don't think they're necessarily doing it, you know, in order to influence the match in any way. I think the ref script is stupid, and I don't think it should be a thing. And most of the time, it just ends up going to the strap anyway. So it just seems like a waste of time. It just ends up wasting like a whole another 2 or 3 minutes. And I think a perfect example is like Devin Larratt, like his last, like, I don't know, 2 years of matches where it takes 10 minutes for a match to start. Like the whole event, like could be, you know, 4 hours long and his one match, like, and there could be 15 matches and his one match is an hour of it.
Constant arguing.
Yeah. It's just too
Like
much.
refs should be able to control certain things at a really high level, but then take them out of the other parts, really.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I think.
for sure. And I think there's going to be I think a lot of the newer leagues like Mac and then like Josh is doing here with Armbender, these new rule sets are starting the matches a lot faster and they're a lot more fun to watch. And like the viewership numbers versus traditional strict arm wrestling are so much better. And I think it's completely due to just letting the arm wrestlers put their arms down, close their hands and go. It's just, there doesn't need to be so much exposition for sure. But having said all that, have you kind of like done any research on the way that the rule sets work? Because if you're used to tournament pooling, the rule set here is going to be a lot different than what you're used to.
I pulled the MABL one time before. It was half a year ago or so against
at Garage Wars, right?
Yeah, Garage Wars. I forget Dave. It was Lawnmower Man. I forget his last name, but I pulled him. So I feel like if it's the same environment as that, I'll be used to it. I'll be good.
In my opinion, as long as it's clear that the better arm wrestler wins, then I'm all for taking whatever away needs to happen. Let's say that these matches don't go your way. Does that change your game plan at all for how you're going to approach the rest of the year? Or, is your confidence level just that high that you're just like here and, to make a statement and just crush everybody?
For the most part, it is that high. But like, even if I lose, it could change things like along the track somewhat. But for the most part, like it would just change it a little bit. It wouldn't like offset it, or it's the same overall plan, just with
for sure. And if you knew what you knew now and you could go back to like your first couple months of arm wrestling, would you change anything to try to progress faster? Maybe
not a ton, but a little bit. Yeah. Just with what being more accurate to get
more
to this
accurate in
point,
your training.
Instead of feeling like I'm more accurate now, like it would just be speeding it up more.
Could you like emphasize on exactly like what being like accurate and speeding it up means for you personally?
Being accurate in the path of what is the most efficient way to arm wrestle, and what like how to be good at arm wrestling, like what matters.
Okay. So you think in the beginning maybe you were just kind of doing things that didn't really have that much carryover, didn't matter as much.
Had carryover for sure into parts of it, but not the most key pieces. Just parts that come after those key pieces. Like personally, when an arm wrestling match starts, to me, what's decided is who has control, high, outside, and then it goes outside to in. Mm-hmm. And you go like you're controlling both, but you're going between them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like that way of thinking about it. For you personally, like in your opinion, do you think people overthink certain things or overvalue certain things?
Not really, because I mostly don't watch that. Like I just focus on my own training, and like I'll teach people at the club how I view things, but that's about as far as that goes.
When you give like a newer guy advice, like what's your favorite piece of advice to give?
The pieces that matter, and what order. Like how to approach the pieces that matter and how to approach arm wrestling.
And like the same things like you were saying with like controlling the height and then, bringing it in, or is it slightly different?
It is that, but it really is that for the most part. As whatever, it depends on the person, depends on what am I trying to help them with? What do they want to learn? Or like, even like, what am I learning? We're all here to get better, get stronger.
Yeah. And for you and your club, who's your closest training partner? Like, who do you battle out with the most?
I'm kind of in a weird spot right now. I'm between like levels, in my opinion. Like, I don't know if you know like any of the Schmidt brothers, but like me and Ryan Schmidt, right? He's definitely like above me. But like that's right now where I get to see like and build my right. Like I get to see where I'm at, and that's a great partner for me to build my strengths up to go where I plan to be eventually. But as far as closeness, I would say it's
Alan. He's a killer still, so that's impressive. Do Do you feel like a lot of your style kind of came from how he pulls? Almost nobody gets to his intensity level. Is he intense like that at practice too, or is that just for matches?
He can get like for matches it's like a different level of intensity, obviously, but like for the most part, he's not. He can get a little like intense though, for sure.
And did you ever see that Game of Arms show?
Maybe some clips. I haven't really seen a lot of it.
I would really recommend it. Old school Alan, like he was one of the best parts of that show. He brought the intensity, and yeah, it was great. It was great seeing him on there. I would definitely recommend checking that out. I know people who they specifically prefer to train with people weaker than them because they feel like then they don't get redlined as much and they can train more often. And then I know people who specifically like to train with people who are just a little bit better or even a lot better than them because they do want to be redlined all the time. Like, do you like to go into practice feeling like you're going to leave just like with nothing left, or do you like to kind of save a little bit in there so you don't overdo it?
And I've thought about this before too. And that's where there's like both are beneficial in my opinion, but it's the balance of like between them, because you can't just go full out all the time. But light pressure where you can just keep going also has a whole lot of value in how it heals you and the muscle memory, the connection of it. So it's like ideally what I would think is pull like every day. If you could pull with someone who isn't able to just kill you, that would be ideal. And then maybe like once or twice a week with people that like you're struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot myself too. And I definitely want to put more of an emphasis on table time and less of an emphasis on necessarily progressing gym numbers so much, because it was like, oh, I need to make sure my back pressure, my side pressure, or whatever is progressing. Whereas now I want to focus more on kind of like what you said, being a little bit more accurate in training and making sure I'm working on the important things. So it's definitely cool to hear you saying, because like you said, only being 20 years old, you're learning things fast, you're picking it up intuitively. And it's like things that's taking me like years, I feel like, to kind of finally understand like what's important. Or do you just like to kind of keep doing like almost like full pulling throughout the whole session?
Generally, it's like I'll still pull fully, but like that is a good thing to think about. And I would say with like that's a part of practice. That's a part of being a good arm wrestler is fighting in a setup, just like loading.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the biggest mistakes that we made at our club for a long time, we were just pulling and pulling, but a lot of times we would like start in a hook already. Like we didn't even care about the setup. Like we didn't fight. Like we just got comfortable and just pulled. That's something that I think in Montana we've gotten away with for a long time because there's a lot of hook pullers here. So everyone's just like, okay, we're gonna go wrist on wrist anyway. So who cares about the hand? And I know you did the Garage Wars, but this is you haven't done arm bender or anything like that before, right?
No,
Or have you?
I've only done the only super match or any format like that other than just tournaments that I've done is that the Garage Wars.
Okay. Like endurance over rounds isn't a concern for you either. Like you feel like you're pretty good there too. Are you a person too that like, do you get? Are you a person that you get pumped up pretty bad, or like do you have a game plan for dealing with the pumps, or is that just not really an issue for you with the way that you pull?
Like muscle pump
Yeah, like where
or like
your arm gets so pumped up that you almost can't even move it.
I've only really had to deal with that in like long tournaments, and honestly mostly just left because like I feel like my right takes a lot to get it pumped.
Okay.
And it takes a strength difference to where if it's gonna get pumped, I'll just get it. So.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, because you don't really look like a guy that like you don't really try to hold on that much, so you probably don't really get as much of a pump as like what other people like. I always tell people I'm not a good arm wrestler, I'm just strong. I just hold on as hard as I can and pull sideways as hard as I can and see what happens.
Fun.
Yeah, it's fun, but it's not good arm wrestling like what you were talking about earlier. But yeah, no, I think that was a pretty good conversation. Is there anything that you want to tell anyone or anyone you want to shout out before we sign off here?
Shout out all my guys at RBA Renewal by Anderson, all the guys I practice with, Robbie, Ryan Carmen. He's back there right now. I heard him walk in.
Nice.
Alan, yeah, all the guys I train with, my family.
Oh, and then before I forget, Do you guys have a big crew coming up from there to support you, or is it just going to be like you and a couple people?
From down here, I think it's just me.
Okay, who's
And
going to be in your
then
corner?
probably Bear or Groot.
Nice, 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 nice,
So
nice.
if I had to guess, but we'll see.
Heck yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. For everyone who tuned in, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like this content, I'd appreciate subscribing to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.